Hey, welcome back to EHS Concepts, the Ways of Safety. The podcast discusses environmental health and safety, along with all the variables and concepts contained therein. Hey everyone, Ryan Rinehart here again. And today's topic is on safety compliance. Or is it? Because to me, safety isn't compliance. It's connection. It's storytelling. So today, I want to challenge a common belief in safety, especially in safety leadership, that compliance is enough. Sometimes not just in safety leadership, but in executive leadership, that compliance is enough or it's good enough safety. Because here's the truth. Compliance tells people what to do. But storytelling tells them why it matters. And if you want your safety culture to stick, not just survive those audits, you need stories that resonate and make the impact with your people. Because I've said it before, compliance, it's mechanical, it's robotic. So, I visited a warehouse where every lockout tagout procedure was followed to the letter. Again, I consult. The paperwork was flawless. I mean, damn good paperwork and records. But when I asked employees why they did it, most of them shrugged because they tell us to do it this way. We got to follow the rules. What the procedure says for lockout tagout. And that comes down to compliance. And again, it's mechanical. It keeps people safe, but it doesn't build belief. And see, belief is what drives the culture. In storytelling, well, it's emotional, right? Let's contrast that with a construction firm I work with. A supervisor shared the story of his father. He had lost a finger in an incident decades ago. Share it with his entire crew, right? Just telling everybody how things are going. And so suddenly, lockout tagout, it wasn't just a rule. It was a way to protect ourselves, our coworkers, ultimately our families from that loss. That story spread across crews and shifts, and that made safety become personal. And that's storytelling. It's emotional. It turns procedures into purpose. Retention comes from resonance. Because people forget slides. I mean, the last time you did your CBD click through and do you remember what was on it? Like, oh God, this I did this last year, right? They forget their acronyms. You know what they remember? They remember those stories. That belief of why we should be doing X, Y, or Z. So when I was at a healthcare organization, I advised them to introduce safety moments at the start of every meeting. Went into all those ins and outs of it. But the staff started sharing personal experiences, those near misses, those lessons learned, those moments that matter. And within a year, the safety engagement scores rose by 25%. The difference wasn't more rules. It was more resonance, more impact, more meaning. So there's a case study. Again, I'll leave out names because I do case studies myself for writing. A rural manufacturing plant reframes its entire safety program around storytelling. Now, the workers got creative. They created short videos about real incidents and what they learned. And these were shared across shifts. And And what do you think happened? Of course, engagement skyrocketed. The incident rates fell. Storytelling turned compliance into belief. And I want to share a story that changed the way a close buddy of mine thinks about safety and forever. And I knew this guy. He knew he had a younger brother. Didn't know all the stuff about his younger brother. I just knew he had family, because we didn't talk about that kind of stuff. We talked about other things, and sometimes we talked about safety because it comes up because I'm a safety guy, right? But it was a few years ago, and I was actually consulting in this facility that this guy worked with. It was a rural manufacturing plant, and one of the supervisors, let's just call him Mike, just have a name. He'd been with them for over 20 years, and Mike's a quiet guy. He always did what he's supposed to do. He always followed the rules, did all that stuff. So I was given a leadership workshop, and I'd ask everyone there to share a moment when safety became personal, because I shared my stories. I lost an uncle, block attack. I've been in place in 78. He'd still be alive, but it's not what happened. But with all this, come around the table, Mike, he was hesitant, but then he started talking about his younger brother, and his younger brother worked in a similar plant, plant life, right? One day, the younger brother, and this is from him, skipped a lockout tag procedure to save time. The machine activated. He survived, but he lost 2 fingers. And Mike said, when he was at the ER with him, that day, that safety stopped being a rule, and between the 2 brothers, it became a promise to each other, for them, to each other, their family, the coworkers. And he had never shared that story before. Again, he was a leader there. But once he did, everything changed. His crew started asking questions. They stopped that rushing mentality. They started believing how to get things correctly done. Now, I've seen organizations introduce safety moments at the start of every meeting. Not stats, not slides, stories. And it always happens. Engagement skyrockets. Storytelling is emotional, it's impactful. It turns procedures into purpose. And again, that's the difference. Compliance is mechanical, it's robotic. It does keep people safe, but it doesn't build that belief system or that culture to carry it. So here's a question. What story has shaped your view of safety the most? Please come on the podcast and send me a DM. We'll talk about it. Because to me, safety isn't about rules. It is about dignity. And when leaders are telling the right story, that culture follows. Yeah. Thanks for listening. And please reach out if you'd like to come on the podcast with EHS Concepts, where I try to make sure that safety becomes leadership, turns into operational excellence. You may have a story that can be impactful and shared across this platform. So thank you again. Have a great day.
We already working together.